Today, we're launching Inside Washington with Politico Pro. Every Friday, Politico will bring us an in-depth look at Canada-U.S. issues. Maybe not the ones you hear about often, but that you should know about. It will be a unique conversation about the most significant cross-border stories. So with us today, Politico Pro's Gardner, who joins us from Arlington, Virginia, and Alex Panetta joins us from Washington. Hello to both of you, and it's great to have you with us on this Friday.
Hello.
Thanks for having us.
So let's talk about pot, a cross-border issue if there ever was one. Now, there seems to be some confusion and trepidation for Canadians crossing into the U.S. now that recreational marijuana is legal here. So what should Canadians admit to at the border? If a Canadian admits to smoking a joint, can he or she be barred from the U.S.? So, you know, there's all these questions that people ask. We've asked ministers here, and they keep telling us, no, whatever you do, don't lie. So, Lauren, let me ask you, I know you've gone all over Congress with this issue. What is their message in Washington?
So members of Congress, certain members of Congress are certainly very concerned about how exactly CBP is going to enforce U.S. federal laws on marijuana at the border. Several members, including Representative Lou Correa from California, he's sent a letter to DHS officials saying we need more clarity. The existing guidance or stated policy isn't enough. And some members of Congress are hoping to get a briefing with DHS officials in November on some of these outstanding questions. They want to know, how is CBP going to determine whether or not a foreign national meets the threshold to be barred from the U.S. because they've admitted to using marijuana? How many foreign nationals have CBP officials questioned at the border and then turned away because they admitted to cannabis use? These are some of the questions that they want to get some answers to in the next few weeks.
So are they talking at all of a questionnaire? So there's sort of it's sort of more homogenous, because right now my understanding it's subjective, and it's up to each and every border agent to decide. So have you smoked a joint? Yes, sir, I smoked a joint 5 days ago. Okay, you're banned or barred from the U.S. It is very subjective. So is there any talk in the U.S. of having sort of specific questions asked to people?
So CBP has said that they are enforcing existing law and existing policy, that this is what they're doing. They're not doing anything more, anything less. So in terms of whether there are going to be new rules or regulations or guidance, as of now, CBP is saying we've done everything we're going to do. What some members of Congress want to see clearly is some more clarity, some more specificity on that. How that would take, what form that would take, is still a question to be determined. But as of now, CBP is saying we have done everything we're going to do on this. This is how we're approaching the issue.
But you know, it's strange to me, because there are more Americans than Canadians right now living under legal weed. What is it? 9 states in the States have legalized recreational marijuana, but on a national, level, Canada has got the business. So how do U.S. lawmakers and businesses feel about that?
Oh, there are some lawmakers that are very unhappy that, given the state of marijuana policy at the federal level in the U.S. right now, they're at a competitive disadvantage in these states where there are existing marijuana industries because it's legal in that state. And that's definitely an issue that some of these members are going to be hammering home in the next few weeks and months as we see implementation of Canada's legalization play out.
So, Alex, pot may be legal in 9 states, but it's still illegal federally in the U.S. So is this wreaking havoc on the banking sector?
So one of the things I find fascinating is, we've all covered marijuana debates for years, and we always heard the Americans are going to get angry if Canada legalizes. Yeah, what we're getting is the American lawmakers who are talking about this, they're angry that Canada is going ahead first. They're complaining that their country has a patchwork of rules, making it very difficult to regulate and creating a lot of uncertainty for their own businesses. So I'll give you one example of one thing that some American lawmakers are worried about is what happened. Canada is the second country in the world to legalize marijuana. The first country, Uruguay, turned into a bit of a problem. Their marijuana industry, their nascent industry, was financially ostracized because American banks went to their Uruguayan partners and said, we're not going to do business with you anymore if you continue to supply the marijuana sector. And so what ended up happening is the stores that sold marijuana in Uruguay were warned by their own banks, we're cutting you off financial services if you sell pot. As a result, only a few stores across the country have decided to sell marijuana, and it's a cash-only business. You got to pay with bills and coins, no more credit cards. So the reason that caused a lot of concern was because the U.S. Patriot Act says it's illegal to transfer funds for an activity that would be illegal within the United States. That would subject you to a jail term of more than a year. Well, that law's still on the books. So Canadian industry that's involved in this nascent business is taking a bit of a risk. Now, what I'm hearing from people is that what happened to Uruguay is unlikely to happen to Canada because Canada's too big. You can't do the same thing with Canada because big companies are involved. And the New York Stock Exchange, companies like Coca-Cola are looking at investing in the sector. You can't basically wipe out an entire chunk of the financial sector. However, technically speaking, companies that get involved in the business are still taking a gamble.
So quickly, Alex, returning to a story, we just have a few seconds, but I want to hear you on this. Something we spoke about earlier on in the show on the steel and aluminum tariffs. What are you hearing from the states about those?
So what we're hearing from about 5 sources, including a couple within the White House, one quite senior, saying that within the administration, there was some desire to have a big political show over the NAFTA agreement. Basically, you would have had President Trump waving the new USMCA, saying, I've killed NAFTA, to do this somewhere in the industrial Midwest, often called the Rust Belt, either Detroit, Pittsburgh, somewhere else. And he basically wanted to have Prime Minister Trudeau and President Peña Nieto to be here as human backdrops for basically what would amount to a pre-midterm campaign commercial. The Canadian government has basically said, look, I'm not coming down to your country to help you produce a political spectacle when you have tariffs on me. And so what's ended up happening now is it sounds like that's really receded. There's no real talk of doing it in the next few days, certainly because the negotiation on tariffs hasn't evolved a whole lot since the spring. I believe there's a landing zone for an agreement. I'm not sure anyone's going to like it.
Alex Panetta in Washington, Lauren Gardner at the Politico offices in Arlington, Virginia. Thank you both, and see you here next week.
Thanks.
Thank you.